He says, the police say last year violent crime declined 4% overall in 7 major categories. A police spokesman says the department is very pleased with the trend. The implied journalistic attitude is that the public is wrong because it has this crazy perception that the city is more violent than ever. I doubt many New Yorkers share any sense of pleasure. New Yorkers know that the figures are so desperately high that a drop here and there does not change the reality or quality of life in New York, nor the accurate perception that the city continues to be unforgivably dangerous. That is what police officials should be saying, or yelling. New Yorkers know that if crime continues anywhere near as high, it will destroy New York's hope of remaining a place where people want to live, work, play, visit, and create. And towards the end he says, we are defining down not just criminal deviancy, but our own hopes and rights to public safety, the most elemental of democratic rights. We need to be aware of how serious our situation is. We have to know what the message is we're carrying out to the rest of the city during this campaign. That piece is an excerpt I'd like to quote from when Senator Moynihan spoke to the Association for a Better New York. Some of you probably heard that Senator Moynihan gave a speech in which he talked about the whole notion of our being willing to tolerate higher standards or higher levels of deviancy. Well, he also talked about something about New York City's past. He said, in the dear old days of Jimmy Walker, we could build the George Washington Bridge in 4 years in 1 month, and think far enough ahead to make it structurally capable of carrying a second deck when the traffic grew. Things happened quickly, easily. Mayor LaGuardia had a ticket, was flying in from Chicago, where the mayor's headquarters were, and was going to land at Floyd Bennett Field. It was fogged in, so he landed in Newark. And he took out his ticket and said, mine says Floyd Bennett Field. What am I doing in a place called New Jersey? 24 months later, LaGuardia Airport opened. When people knew something needed to be done a few decades ago, they did it. Today, the things that we know need to be done, but we seem to be powerless to do it. I say it's because we don't have the technology anymore. Technology that used to work was appropriate for the past. Today, every time some idea comes up, it seems like people start a lawsuit. Not in my backyard soon, it's running rampant. So I'd like to make a quick analogy to what quality councils represent, and then I'll introduce Dr. Tribus. There's a notion of 3 kinds of knowledge. Knowledge that people know is one slice of the pie. The knowledge that people know they don't know is another slice of the pie. And there's a third slice. I mean, you can know that you don't know something, and then you can plan on learning. Like, you may not know how to skydive, but if you decide you want to skydive, you go and take a lesson. You need it to be able to do it. What if there are things you don't even know you don't know? You can't study things you don't know, because you don't know to study them. It's unfortunate that in New York City, the idea and the technology of quality and the idea and the technology of quality councils isn't known. Therefore, people don't know to study. This is sort of what Dr. Deming used to say when he would comment, how could they know? The information, the idea wasn't on their radar screen. So what we're aiming to do with this campaign is to alert people to the fact that there's something that here in New York is not known, and needs to be known, and needs to be studied. So just to give you one taste of what kind of shape New York is in now versus what kind of shape it was in before. Those of you who are watching the Neil Lair NewsHour may sometimes notice these little video essays at the end by a man named Roger Rosenblatt. Well, he did one recently on New York City.
Roger Rosenblatt has some thoughts about the New York that was and the New York that is today. The March of the Successes. Whatever happened to that tune? Everybody used to know it, playing in the inner ear that heart-thumping drum and trumpet rag. Everybody in New York certainly knew it. What Brooklynite was not aware of the sighting of the march? In the seagrass of Staten Island, someone cocked an ear and heard it every day. Everyone in Manhattan absolutely heard it. Because to hear the march at full throttle, one had to be in Manhattan, having made it there down in the open-air tunnels of Wall Street, or preening in the precious shop windows on Madison Avenue, or most brazenly of all, strutting one's stuff on the Avenue of the Americas, the glory road cutting through the heart of the island. Only a few years ago, the double-breasted armies of the hopefuls used to march under the sightless windows of Simon & Schuster, CBS, NBC, and Time and Life, and Paul, Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison. If the great god Ambition sputtered its first whimper on Ellis Island, it fell at its roaring I am on the island of Manhattan. This is New York I am describing, or it was, at least it was. Something strange has happened to the city in the past few years. It has lost ambition or misplaced it. The economy may have driven ambition away. It's hard to think you can make it here if nobody's making it anywhere. Race hatred, violence, drugs, they may have driven ambition away. The other day, a man from India who was saving up to study medicine by working in a newsstand was shot in the face and killed at 11 in the morning near Penn Station. Ambition murdered in broad daylight. Yet ambition was the luggage that man carried when he arrived in New York. Why else would anyone come to New York or to the country for which it stands, were it not for ambition? When all those Irish, Jewish, German, Italian, Slav, Chinese, Dominican, and everyone else on earth who left everything they had on earth to swing into the port of New York, America, they were not looking for culture or even for gold, not gold alone. They were looking for their lives. So what has happened to all that? Money has been scarce before, scarcer than now. People have been homeless before, violence high, why is crime too? The 1970s and 1980s saw the beginning of the age of grievance. But long before that, tribal warfare was part of New York. It was taken for granted that as you walked from one neighborhood to another, words like wop, kite, nigger, spick, and nick would follow. So would sticks and stones. To put things in their nightmarish perspective, it was a common practice of Irish gangs at the turn of the century to set upon enemies and pluck out their eyes. To be fair, ambition has not disappeared entirely. The rise of Asian Americans continues to be impressive. Korean-owned fruit and vegetable stores bloom like fruit and vegetables all over the city. Indians still produce the highest number of doctors of any ethnic group, daylight murders notwithstanding. Hispanics are filling the labor jobs that every American immigrant group has always filled before rising, and they are rising now. Reports of their death being greatly exaggerated, 2/3 of African Americans are well established, having risen successfully. It is only the remaining third, the so-called underclass, that remains down and out in New York. Yet there is almost no feel of the I'm going to make it life in this city anymore. And it isn't the season, though the season doesn't help. The foliating winter reveals the essence of places, and the essence of New York these days is cold. The place is as big as it ever was, and as noisy, and at night it still lights up like a flare. But no one plays the march of the successes, and the city doesn't feel like itself. Take a look. The street is to be crossed. The bus is to be caught. The day is to be gotten through. You're home. You close the door. Does anybody hear a drum? I'm Roger Roosevelt.